Alright guys, Scrappy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. It feels we have waited a long time for some banger series to finally return here to the CDL, but we certainly had our fair share today. Two massive series to kick things off. Loads of drama on these ones from start to finish. OpTic versus FaZe as well to finish out the day. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate. There is absolutely no time to waste today. We have plenty to dive into. Firstly, Thieves versus the Carolina All Ravens. I feel bad for Ravens here because I'm not going to lie, I predicted the way this one was going to go perfectly, but it was still tragic to see the way this round 5 ended, or game 5 ended, especially when there was all sorts of delays and drama on this, unfortunately. Didn't even realise, actually, that TJ was playing out of the Boston facilities. That's kind of cool to see from those guys still, you know, giving TJ the spot to play after, of course, was on Boston a little while ago now. But the problem that we had is that Carolina won map 1 on the sub base, and again, you know, they did it against FaZe. They come against Thieves, get the job done again, looking good. Thieves' hardpoint, by the way, is atrocious, right? Like, the record of that is abysmal, and that they don't seem to be getting better in proper match play really anytime soon. So Thieves were then having to move their setups because there was an issue. The power basically went down. So like there was basically an hour delay. Was it even more than an hour? I don't really know. And as Ravens say, we take FaZe to a game 5. Suddenly teams are turning off their power to try and ice these guys, and like it was a bad time, right? And it's tough for the Ravens boys, especially mentally. You've just won map 1, you're feeling confident. Map 2's about to get underway. Then Nadeshot forgets to pay the bills. The power goes out of the compound, and then all of a sudden the runway into map 2 gets massively delayed. So yeah, the Ravens guys get iced pretty hard. Even Clay is talking about, look, I just want to play at this point, right? And look, both of these teams were already locked into losers brackets. 10 points is nice, and 10 points down the line might be important, but it's not the end of the world winning or losing the series. But both teams, of course, wanted to get some confidence going into the major because, as I say, they both will be starting in losers, joined by some very interesting teams we'll discuss here in a couple of minutes. But yeah, Clay says, I just want to play. Eventually, they got back on the way. Coverage continues soon. This is like the classic thing the CDL do. And to be honest, if it had been like 0-0 and the power went out, they might have like delayed the series and made it last series of the day or something or whatever, but because it was already 1-0, they kind of just had to run with it and wait until it would actually come back. Eventually, they got it sorted, and Los Angeles Thieves got going again. Gotta say, this is the first series in quite some time where Cammy has actually been, you know, particularly impressive. You guys know that I am a pretty big fan of Afro's play style. He definitely turned up in game 5 of this series, but it was Cammy making plays throughout the majority of it. They do go on to win this search and destroy, and again, this is what I said this morning and yesterday, that it's Ravens search and destroy which is going to let them down here. Arguably, they could have won the control as well. I think it was the first rounds they will probably think they could have closed out. But again, they go to a hard point so they get the job done. This time it was Clay showing up big time. Fellow has not been good, really, by the numbers since joining these guys for GodRx. But it does seem like the way he plays, the engagements he has, slightly faster than GodRx, really, more damage than GodRx is putting up, has allowed Clay to actually become like the slayer that they need, which is somewhat surprising to me. But Clay has said, you know what, if you guys aren't going to slay, fine, I'll do it myself. And Clay stepped up big time. I mean, his Karachi R-point performance map 4 was impeccable. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to replicate that in map 5. But, you know, this was just bad for Ravens. They went up 4-1 map 5 on Thieves, and they just couldn't close out. They got first blooded again and again and again. Thieves adapted quite nicely. Afro was, I think, the big part of their turnaround here in this final map. And as Clay, obviously, understandably, really gutted at this loss. It's not the end of the world. You know, they were both in losers anyway. You obviously want the 10 points, but it's more about the improvement. And Ravens have definitely improved. If they can focus these next couple of days when they get to, you know, Boston for the major on trying to improve their search and destroy somewhere, they can actually potentially put together something in the losers bracket. Their respawn is legitimately pretty competitive right now. They beat FaZe in a control. They, you know, maybe they're not going to get too many Karachi controls after the win against FaZe now in the vetoes, but their hardpoint's looking pretty tasty. It's just the search and destroy which is letting them down at the moment, which was probably expected, to be fair, as kind of like a brand new team. So I think they're making some progress here, but the big drama really came immediately after the series. I don't know why Thieves thought this was a good idea to tweet it, but this was, if you guys aren't aware, a recent tattoo that Clay got on his right arm, and they Photoshop it to put an L in the middle. And this was never going to go down well. I thought especially bad really was that they tagged Clay in it. It's like, you're just taking the piss at this point. So I didn't think this was in particularly good taste at all, and Clay then replied as follows: believe this has now been deleted, as you might expect. But yeah, Clay was going off with them, and I think for very good reason, right? I think that tweet was unacceptable. It did get deleted in very short order. I did just want to clarify though, because I know there was lots of people saying that that was the tattoo that he got for his sister, which would have been, of course, especially bad. But Clay did confirm here that the one that he's looking to get for his sister is actually a different tattoo he's going to get on his left arm. So this was not about, you know, for his sister, but it's still, you know, it's got the double helix. It feels, I don't know, somehow family related. I'm not really sure exactly, but it's not the sister one as far as I'm aware, but it's still not obviously a good look at all, right? And Clay eventually, and this is what I like about Clay, he really does wear his heart on his sleeve. He obviously massively annoyed by losing the series, especially the manner in which they did. Clay didn't have the best map 5, but, you know, losing a 4-1 advantage, Thieves come back and win it. It's tough for the Ravens boys, and Clay, immediately after the series, is going to be fuming about that, understandably. But then afterwards, he realizes, okay, look, we're looking better, making progress, and if they can just tighten up the search, they can potentially be a force in the losers bracket come to the major itself. The next series, though, not gonna lie, I somewhat overlooked the whole Priestahh versus New York Subliners storyline. Obviously, New York versus Boston is a great rivalry anyway, but the fact that Priestahh was coming in here after getting just dropped from the Subliners, like on both sides of this, there was a massive intention to try and win it, and Boston needed to win this series. Based on the way the other series had gone, it meant that Los Angeles Guerrillas, despite going 0-2 this weekend, had the beneficial situation over Boston because of the way the other matches fell through. So Boston needed to win this one. They took a massively important game 1 here on the Skid Row, and I thought, damn, my predictions today are cooking. I'm gonna, you know, get this Boston Game 5 thing right again. But didn't happen, unfortunately. New York Subliners turned it up in the search and destroy, and then the control was an absolute banger. Now, this was where the controversy was caused. Not gonna lie, control right now might be better than Hardpoint in many respects. Invasion control is atrocious. I don't want to say any otherwise on that. But Karachi control and high-rise control both actually produced banger maps here, and this was an especial example. Simp had 44 kills this map, 43 on this screenshot, 44 overall. There were records getting broken left, right, and center, and Boston come back from a 20-11 deficit to clutch up here in this round 5 in the control, take the control. I mean, it was an absolute banger series. But what you might notice here is that Slasher is laying down behind this pipe thing, which, well, this caused a fair bit of uproar. I'm sure we'll talk about it in more detail tomorrow as well, because there was lots of further reaction to it, but I'll do a little bit of it now. This was the overall scoreboard, by the way, 8,200 damage for Simp for the loss in the end. But this was Slasher's POV. Now, this isn't a stair, it's just a piece of cover that exists on the ground. And if you lay down behind it, they can barely see you, whereas you can shoot them. It's a cheesy spot, which may or may not have been banned in like CMG, wages and stuff like this for some time, and I think it was the belief of some pros that this was gentleman's agreemented by the pro players as well, as you might well expect it to be, and even Slasher himself says that it should be. We'll see that in a second here. But at the end of the day, again, it's another example. Push comes to shove, very important set of circumstances. Oh, all of a sudden the GAs start to get broken, or, you know, GAs that maybe aren't GAs start to get broken, right? It's these crunch moments, 7-3 live count. Here comes Slasher pulling out the cheese spots. Very coincidental, you could argue it's got to be said. But this is not exactly brand new. I'm pretty sure Drazah might have used it before, maybe even HyDra used it before in the same map or something. So, but the Slasher one was by far the most evident, really. And they end up losing the game 4. New York Subliners come back. This is a banger series, by the way. Like, so many cracking maps here. Subliners took a pretty close invasion, and then eventually they take the final map as well. Slasher got this crazy wallbang actually here on, I think he saw a couple of, well, HyDra's cheeks maybe pushing through the wall, so he managed to get the skill on HyDra, but he ended up like 1 in 6 after another couple of rounds. And then the final round was absolutely absurd, because Boston, I thought they were going to find a way to do this. Snoopy then falls off the map here in just the absolute worst possible time to fall off the map when you're down 5-4. Capsidal then nearly clutches a 1 versus 4, but HyDra just about gets the job done. And yeah, devastating for Boston. Man, Snoopy's got to be gutted, right? That was their chance to make winners, and he falls off the map in the crucial round. They end up losing. So Subliners get the victory in the end, and that puts Boston to the losers bracket. Can you believe it, at their home major? It looked like 2-5 might be enough, but the way other series have gone, as I say, we'll have a look at the bracket tomorrow. This was the immediate reaction, though, to the stair glitching drama, because as Kismet says, keep on stair glitching, I'll be taking note of that. Gotta say it's a bit rich maybe coming out of the Subliners just because they were the first team to break GAs when Skyz did it against Gorillas back in December time. So not maybe sure that Subliners should be talking about this so much, but whatever. Slasher's explanation here, and you know, look, Slasher's the GA commissioner or whatever. I think that he probably knows what's going on in some sense. Brother, everybody does it. It's unfortunately not GA'd. Look at the rep chat. Everyone knows how straight up of a player I am. I'm not trying to cheat an online win. So, you know, obviously people can debate the merits of this. But Slasher says, look, I wish it was banned, but lots of people have been doing it as well, not just me. So sure, I used it in an important moment to get the victory, which we did, but it shouldn't be, maybe it should be GA'd, but it's not being GA'd currently based on the way things stand. So definitely a massive point of controversy. There, I'm sure will be further reaction to that as well, we shall dive into tomorrow. And these were the overall series numbers here. Snoopy with a bit of a rough one overall, but you know, Boston played pretty well. They just couldn't get over the line in the search and destroys. But I've got to say, New York Subliners are looking, wouldn't say shaky per se, but they're definitely not looking untouchable in the respawns at all. So I think they'll be, you know, they have to improve things. They're 6-1, but right now they are not where some of the other teams are, I would say, in this league as it presently stands. But after those two banger series, the one that we really wanted to be a good one, I think, going into this season was FaZe versus OpTic. For the last couple of years, FaZe have not been able to beat OpTic basically at all. Last year, they couldn't beat them one single time. The last 11 times they've met, OpTic won 10 of those 11 occasions. Today was a different story. FaZe came in here 6-0, looking to close out a 7-0 stage. The map set was kind of interesting. Look, no sub-base. The issue for OpTic is in this series, we saw FaZe play sub-base hardpoint against Carolina and lost it. OpTic don't like sub-base hardpoint, so that's not an advantage they could really go for in this series. Ended up on kind of invasions, high-rise control, something that usually FaZe don't tend to play too much of. So I'm not saying FaZe were really experimenting too much with their map pool, but they maybe weren't going down the more conventional route. This is what they ended up with. Game 1 was a pretty solid start from OpTic initially. Again, they start well, so there's no talk about slow starts necessarily. They come out the box kind of quick. It's converting that was the problem, but have a look at this, right? Dashy against Cellium, 15-6, now 15-7 in their 22 career matches. And game 1 was a very close fought affair. OpTic will probably feel like they should have won this one. Again, they start strong down the stretch. FaZe are the stronger. Did they get maybe somewhat fortunate with some of the spawns? Sure. There was also a very interesting situation here to close out this game when Shotzzy nearly made a crazy good play here. Like, this was the rotation. Like, at the end of the day, this spawn is going to disappear because we know that in the new patch updates, this hill no longer exists. But it still exists for now, and Shotzzy, here he goes. Now, he knows that his play here is to sneak past Cellium and try and get behind the guys in the hill, get a couple of kills unexpectedly. Really heads up play here from Shotzzy. I don't know how Cellium heard him or knew that he was there. I know there's talk about sound EQ and stuff like that because, you know, Shotzzy had the dead silence on here, so there's no way that he should have been heard here. But I don't know, maybe Cell just had some sort of spidey sense and he turns around, catches a glimpse of Shotzzy, I don't know, because Shotzzy's sneaking through to make a play, gets shot a couple of times, eventually gets found out, and he can't make the play happen. But a nice attempt for sure from Shotzzy. If he did make it through and make the play, it would have been one of the best plays like we've seen in the CDL, really. But didn't happen in the end. FaZe closed out the game 1. And look, I told you guys earlier today, what I was really looking for here was what's the body language going to look like from OpTic? Are they going to go down 1-0, 2-0 and look defeated, or are they going to look like they still have it in them, right? I didn't see much fight really from OpTic today, which I was somewhat surprised about. Usually they're really up for this series. I'm not going to lie, looking at the face cams, it didn't seem to me that OpTic were raring to go as maybe they usually are, maybe in a series like this. I thought that was somewhat concerning. Even the game 2, I know people are saying this was a pretty close series. I don't really think it was, to be honest. Apart from the game 1, it just felt like FaZe had their way basically the entire time. The control was interesting, we'll discuss in a second. Even this round, I mean, I don't really know how they've almost let him get away with this. Shotzzy just comes charging in. I know people call him TikToksy, and you can understand it when there's plays like that. Super unnecessary. And sure, OpTic do eventually get the job done, but even at 15 seconds on the clock, they just about get the double tile to work, but like that was almost a 1v4. And then the next round after this, Pred, it was a 3v3 on the defense. Pred just like laid down by the A bomb, and then OpTic just hoped that he would get a kill and stay alive. But FaZe played it diligently. They went around, they cleared the spot, they got the kill. And I think if you're OpTic in that type of situation, 3v3 on the defense against FaZe, you've got to be somewhat proactive. I don't think you can just afford to sit around and hope that things work out. You can't play hope COD, you know, you've got to make things happen. sometimes. That didn't happen. They end up losing the search and destroy. Again, these were their body language after the search and destroy. Kenny weren't looking particularly happy, neither Pred nor Dashy. And the control in some ways is a pretty similar story. OpTic on their offenses looked pretty good in general, but they couldn't win a defense. FaZe was just too strong there. They were just spawn trapping them and everything like this. And yeah, the high-rise control eventually goes the way of FaZe. The very interesting thing, though, that's now been emerging after the series was what occurred in this particular spot when, during the series, OpTic and FaZe were playing. We had this spotted when there was a brief technical pause, and we had Kenny, Shotzzy, you know, and all the guys looking at the camera as follows. And actually, on the left-hand side here, maybe, you know, I don't know, Karma or JP takes a picture of what actually occurs on the screen. And this, I guess, is what that screenshot looked like, as Kenny says, GG's FaZe lost 3-0. They're a great team, definitely played better, but wow, this is not okay for the whole series. So he says this was happening the entire time. Ping was fluctuating between 24 and 70. You guys can see the FaZe boys, 16, 16, 15. That's the server they're on, but they were either getting 20 ping, the OpTic guys, or 70 ping. So this is a big deal, to be honest. And you might say, okay, well, don't let it get in your head or whatever. And look, it's no doubt a big deal. We saw when OpTic Chicago played FaZe back in Cold War, they were on a server that they weren't meant to be on, and therefore they got slammed. Sure, that's not the entire excuse, right? But let's say you know your ping is somewhat dodgy. It's going to affect your headspace to some degree. Remember, that's one of the reasons why OpTic teams somewhat checked out this series. So Kenny admits, like, they played better. People will say excuses. And look, I think maybe that's pretty justifiable. They didn't play well enough in this series. But nonetheless, got to be said from the CDL perspective that, like, if your servers are messing up like this in an important online series, I think there was even talk in other series earlier in the day this was happening as well. So potential server problems. Did OpTic play well enough this series anyway? No. Did this, you know, ping situation affect the defeat? Maybe. Did it overhaul the fact that FaZe are clearly the better team? I don't really think so. But still, you never really know if OpTic hadn't been having these issues, whether mentally they'd have been more switched on than they actually were in the end. But look, at the end of the day, both teams are winners regardless. OpTic's first round match against Miami was confirmed regardless of this result. But still, big questions to be raised on this team. Look at the numbers. Sellers at 1.56, and understandably, OpTic go into this weekend's not having won not just a match this weekend, but not having won a map this weekend, which is not ideal at all when you've got big matches to play against Miami. We saw the rematch of that just a couple of days ago, and, well, understandably, we can guess what Drazah's tweeting after this series. Lots of drama here. Very much interested your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.